Most entrepreneurs, when they're starting out, they'll say that they'll work with anyone, and I'm no exception. But I'm getting very specific about who I want to work with before I start getting clients. Having a strategy for who I want to work with and why I want to work with them is going to help me in the long run to make sure I'm aligning my business with what I actually want to do and the values that I have. Welcome to my channel. Follow for more. Welcome back to my series on building my business. You're watching me month by month, play by play, build my business live. This isn't a business that I already have standing. This is something that I'm building net new, and you're watching me get to the point of getting my first client. So that's what my focus is right now. It's getting my first client, hopefully a long-term client. That is the goal. I do actually have two different people that I'm in talks with just at this moment, trying to figure out like how can I help them, what can I offer to them. One person I've known for quite some time now, and the other person I've most likely met this month. Yeah, I actually met them this month, but I'm really excited for the opportunity to work with them, so fingers crossed that does work out. So getting clients is not simple, it's not easy, it's like getting a job. It does require work, it is within itself a job. So, why I'm defining my dream client this early is I don't want to build my business around random opportunities as I have during my career. So, a lot of my career, I definitely knew the kind of job I wanted to have, the kind of career I wanted to have, but I did kind of just go for opportunities as they came to me, not necessarily as I wanted them to come to me. And there's nothing wrong with that. I have a lot of skills. Listen, there is nothing on this earth I can't figure out. I promise you, I can figure out anything. I have a lot of skills because of this. I have a lot of experience because of this and a lot of expertise. But with my business, I want to be a little bit more clear and grounded in exactly what I want to do. So that's something I'm trying to focus on with my business. For me, I feel like the wrong client can actually slow me down more than not having a client at all. Yes, money is money. So I definitely want to get clients and I definitely want to get going. But I do really need to think about the kind of clients that I want, because if I'm going to work with someone long term, I should enjoy working with them. I should enjoy having that relationship. It is a relationship. A client is very much so like having a partner. So you need to make sure there's someone you enjoy working with, you want to work with, and you're going to enjoy working with for a long time. I'm building for sustainability and scalability, not just quick wins. Even if it's slow and I lose out on money earlier, it's okay as long as I know long term I'm focusing on my plans and my growth just as much as I'm focusing on my clients' plans and their growth, because that's what I'm doing. I'm helping clients scale their business. So that's why I'm focusing on defining my client early on and not waiting until later. All right. So, being the very type A person that I am, I have written this down. I do have clear notes on the type of client that I want to work with. Don't get me wrong, I am still open to a lot of different opportunities when it comes to more short term clients or projects. But long term, I would like to really hone in and focus on the type of client that I'm most interested in, just to make sure that we're both aligned. So I have my notes in front of me. Again, very type A, very, very me, let's put it that way. So, what ideally I'm looking for is a company that's in a scaling stage. So, either they're already in the midst of scaling or they're getting ready to scale. I want them to be post revenue. So, I'm not necessarily looking to work with a startup, and that's not necessarily a hard and fast rule. It's more so just a preference. Ultimately, I'm looking to work with an organization that has under 5 team members, ideally just one. So a solopreneur would definitely be my top choice, because I'm looking for someone who is getting ready to hire, who does not already have employees, and they do need the help to figure out what's the next step, where do I go. Under 5, I think that's a really good sweet spot for making sure that I'm able to provide for the needs of the organization without necessarily having to focus on too many different areas and too many different people's opinions. that matters a lot. I don't think this is something most people think about when they're looking at working with companies. I'm sure some people do, don't get me wrong. I'm sure plenty of people do. But that's something that's really important to me just because I know where I like to work and I know the kind of environment that I do want to work in. I've worked in startups and scale ups pretty much my entire career. They've all been pretty corporate, but they have not necessarily been like the big Microsofts of the world or things like that. I've worked in more FANG adjacent companies, companies that have been acquired by a bigger fish. So that's where my career has been, and that's what I like to work in. I want to go even smaller than what I've worked in, just so I can give that good one-on-one support and really hone in on helping them scale to that next level. So that's what I'm looking for in terms of business stage and company size. When it comes to industry, I'm a little bit more flexible because I do have a lot of interest and I do have a lot of things I'm passionate about and I'm interested by. So for me, I think where I can contribute the most is in SaaS or tech companies, e-commerce, if you own a professional services organization. So like if you're a lawyer, if you're a tax attorney, CPA, if you are a CFO, you work in finance, consultants, coaches, I think that I can really help those types of businesses scale. There's also like membership and community based businesses. So that involves a lot of moving parts. And it definitely is good to have someone who can come in, help you with operations, and get you to the next level that you want to be at. Lastly, is real estate. Okay, so my video got cut off. So hopefully it is not cutting back in at a weird time. Let's hope, fingers crossed. So SaaS, tech, e-commerce, professional services, again, that's like legal, tax, finance, consultants, coaches, and also membership and community businesses, as well as real estate, are all types of industries that I'm interested in, I have experience in some way or the other, or I just feel like those are going to align the best with what I can actually provide. So, how my business is going to scale best or allow me to provide the best service is having repetitive operations that have to be optimized. Those are the kind of things those type of businesses that I mentioned before are infamous for. There's going to be a lot of things, a lot of moving parts, but they're not necessarily just random ad hoc things that don't make any sense. They all work together. They all have a flow, they all have a rhyme or reason, and I'm just making sure that I'm making it optimized. I'm doing the automations, I'm following the operational procedures that are best for those businesses. So, real estate, I did mention last. Real estate is actually interesting because I always thought I'd be a real estate agent when I was younger. So, it's really something that intrigues me, but it's definitely something that I feel like perhaps isn't best for me professionally, but I still love real estate. I'm invested in real estate. And I also want to continue investing in real estate. So it's definitely something that really, really interests me. And I would love to work with a real estate agent, just making sure that they're, getting their SOPs together and they're really, really making the most of their time. Because real estate agents, they do have a lot to do, but you have to manage your time and make sure you're spending that time wisely. So industry fit is more so like what I have experience in, what I'm interested in, and what I feel like I can provide the best service for. There's also location. So, location has to be factored in to some degree simply because although it's great to have the opportunity to work anywhere, from anywhere, for anyone, anywhere, it does make a lot more sense to be in a certain time zone to provide the best support. So, time zone is something that I do have to keep in mind. When it comes to what time zone I'm available to work in, I do need to focus on the Americas. So, we're looking at Atlantic to Pacific, and that's mainly because when you have clients that do depend on you to be available during the day, it is much easier to be available during the day when it's the same time and both where they are and where you are. So if I'm focusing on working in a time zone that's not similar to mine, I'm going to have disruptions in my ability to provide support. And that's not necessarily the kind of experience that I want to provide. I'm open to Europe, and that's mainly because I have worked in Europe before and I have worked a lot with some of my team being in Europe, some of my team being in the US. So I know how to finagle that. Also, if the client really doesn't need me during the daytime, that's perfectly fine. I can make that work. But what I can't make work is if someone is in Australia. How I know this is because I've had a client in Australia before. When I was younger, I was an executive assistant, and I had a client in Australia. He was actually my biggest client. And ultimately, it worked fine in the beginning, but it really does make a huge difference when you are in the same time zone. And long term, that just wasn't going to work out. That's perfectly fine. He's great. Like, he's a great guy. So that's okay. But he ended up getting someone who's in his time zone, and that made sense. So the most important thing, honestly, is going to be my customer or my client's budget. They have to be able to afford me. I'm not cheap. I do know what I'm doing and I do it very well. So I don't come cheap. So they're going to need to have a pretty healthy budget in order to afford my services. Ultimately, I'm looking to work with clients that can retain me long term. So if they're not able to afford my services, that's definitely not going to work well. I might be able to do one off projects or do short term retainers, but I'm looking for long term retainers. So it is going to be important that they can afford my services. My general range, depending on the services I offer, the packages that my client is interested in, and just how available I would need to be, is like 2 to 10,000 a month, depending on the actual service I provide. So from the high end, that's definitely going to be more of a full time opportunity that's going to be kind of always on. I am a very integral part of their business. And the lower end is going to be more part time support. I'm helping them with their operations, I'm helping them scale, but I'm not necessarily there on a day to day basis. I'm not necessarily the go to person for everything when it comes to operations. I'm there for support. I'm there to make sure things move seamlessly. I'm there to make sure the automations are set up, but that's a different type of service. So I do have different packages that I offer, but realistically, budget is going to be the most important thing. Your client has to be able to pay you, and I would really like to be paid by my clients. So that's something that's important to me. Then the last few things, these are definitely going to be more intangible. These aren't hard and fast. These really depend on, I would say, the vibe I'm getting from the client. I know vibe isn't a good metric for how much you should work with someone, but it is important to be able to feel out the room. So, growth potential. Again, if they are pre scale or ready to scale, that's ideal. If they're not necessarily at the place where they're getting ready to scale, will they be scaling in the next 6 to 12 months? That's very important to me because that deciphers, like, okay, are we going to have a long term relationship? Am I going to constantly have things I need to iterate and automate? And that's something I want to do. I like having work. I like having things to work on. I like having an opportunity to improve on things. So that's important. This is a big one, but this is definitely going to come down to the conversation that I have with the client and the relationship that we build. Are you ready to move forward with a solution? I don't want to work with a client who's like gung ho, ready to go, and then you actually get ready to implement the solution and they're like, oh, wait, let me think about it. You should always think about it, but like a week, maybe two, not a month or two. That's completely different. That definitely makes a difference. So I'm looking to work with people who are ready to go. They're ready to use my services. They need me, not necessarily just want me. Also, I do want to work with people who I vibe with, people who I actually enjoy working with, because that is very important. There's lots of opportunities out there to work with people who are great in their own right, but do you work well together? That's something that's important, especially with long term clients. So I definitely want to make sure that it's kind of like a good balance of fun and business. Like, can't be party all day, can't be party all night. We have to get down to business sometimes. And then the last thing is just the lifetime value of working with that client. And it's not to say that I'm against working with clients short term. It's just more so I am looking to work with a client, or clients, of course, that I can have a retainer with. I can work with long term. Perhaps, we start off with one package or one set of offerings and then we move to something else. So that's something that's important to me. I'm making sure that I'm looking into that. And, this dream client of mine does exist. This is not anything crazy. This isn't a list of like, I want someone to also love purple too. Like, You don't have to love purple, that's okay. So these are things that I'm thinking about right now, and when it comes to a client, and I'll go into more detail later about how I'm actually going to find this client, but I'll quickly talk about what I'm doing right now and what I think I'll be doing this month. So that's what I'll be focusing on. So what I'm doing to find my client is I'm not trying to be everywhere all at once. This is not how that's going to work. I don't think that's helpful. I don't think that works, honestly. So, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I do have two potential clients that I'm really putting my attention on right now. One I'm hoping to talk to later this week to actually flesh out, what his needs might be, how I can come in and help him. The other person I have already talked to, we've already discussed it briefly. Like, he's definitely going to need me, but it's probably going to be in a couple months. It's not going to be right now. So, networking is the number one way I'm looking for clients.